Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Bowhunting AZ podcast. This episode is a recording of the annual turkey hunting seminar hosted by Christian Hunters of America. With a panel of 4 speakers, Corky Richardson hosts the event as each panel member gives input on their tactics, techniques, and secrets. Essentially, this is an event where the leading individuals just plain knowledge drop for several hours. If you've never gone to one, you have to come out, especially for their annual elk seminar coming up in August here. The star guest of the night is David Barnhart, national champion turkey caller. Together with Mr. Barnhart is a panel of experts including Corky Richardson, president of Christian Hunters of America, as well as Scot Snary and Howard Frampton. Before we jump on into the seminar, let me take a quick minute to thank all of those who make this podcast possible. Backwoods grind. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge coffee nut. I like my coffee strong and a solid flavor to back it up. The guys over at Backwoods Grind have it going on. I get my coffee shipped every 2 weeks to me automatically, and you can choose whole bean or different variations of ground. You can opt for a one-time purchase, bi-weekly, or monthly basis. Backwoods Grind is a coffee that goes beyond the mug. From traditions to memories and long-lasting relationships, these are all built upon the passion brought to you by their blends specifically roasted for hunters and outdoorsmen alike. Be sure to check out their 3 newly released blends, Camp House, Fireside, and Nightcap. Visit backwoodsgrind.com and use code BAZ10 to get 10% off your order. I'd also like to thank Rax. Rax is hands down the coolest bow hangers on the market. Display your bow with pride in your house, your garage, or anywhere you'd like. They carry most major bow brands while also offering a custom service if you have an idea or logo of your own that you'd like to make into a bow hanger. Use them to display your traditional bow, compound bow, or crossbow. They also work great for hanging your hunting gear, bags, or hats. Not to mention, the designs look just plain awesome all by themselves. A Rax hanger makes for a great gift for that special hunter in your life. Go to raxinc.com. That's RAXXINC.com to see some of the available designs or contact Rax to discuss a custom hanger of your own. If you'd like to see how sick their custom hangers are, go check out my Instagram feed. For listeners of the Bowhunting AZ podcast, use the promo code PODCAST and get 15% off your order. Rax, show off your passion.
First of all, thank you everybody for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. My name is Mike Karnowski, Vice President of Christian Hunters of America, and this is kind of what we do is we do free seminars to teach you. So you're going to be the first one to have this new platform. We decided to take 4 experts of Arizona turkey hunting in the past. If you've been in our previous ones, we kind of focused on just the big picture of videos and turkey hunting, all the excitement. So today is going to talk about Arizona. What does it mean to hunt Arizona turkeys with Colin? And we got 4 Arizona experts with that, so it's pretty exciting. So with that, I'm going to open up with a quick prayer, then I'm going to have the panel come up, and this is going to be an interactive. So the idea is we want feedback. So we want your questions. We want you, as you're up here using the calls, bring up your calls, talk about that. We want to basically teach you how to hunt Arizona turkeys. So if you're not asking us questions, that means we're not doing our job. So the idea is we want you to leave this seminar, then send us an email here at the end of April, early May, saying, hey, is that the seminar? We killed a bunch of turkeys, so it'd be pretty cool. So with that, I'm going to pray. Lord God in heaven, we just love you, Lord. We just thank you for all your opportunities. Thank you for Christian Hunters of America, that we can come together in an environment like this, Lord, and teach turkey hunting. Lord, thank you for every person that's here. We just ask that you bless their families, Lord. We just ask that you give them safety, and we just ask that you protect us as we go through this seminar. In Jesus' name, amen. So with that, I'm going to have Howard Frampton come up. So he's part of, ever since I can remember, he's been part of the local NWTF Valley Longbeards. So I've been on many turkeys hunting with him. He's killed a lot of turkeys. He kind of looks like a turkey, so it's kind of natural when we're out there. You start strutting.
Easy for me.
Then we have Scot Snary. So we'll have Scott, another long-time turkey hunter, another guy I've had the blessing to hunt with.
Make sure you clear up this expert thing.
So the expert, they never like to hear about experts, but when I talk about experts, is they understand the calls, they understand how to hunt Arizona turkeys, and they've killed a lot of turkeys. With that, we have special guest David. David's, he is truly an expert. So this is our guy. So Dave is probably, He's killed a lot of birds, and I say when he talk about killing a lot of birds, it's usually because he's helping somebody. He loves to help the youth hunters. He loves to take women out. He loves to take people out. So he's all about turkey hunting. Then our fourth person that's going to kind of be our MC is Corky Richardson. So again, he just talks turkey. I've never seen him actually shoot a turkey. We claim he's shot a turkey, but we'll see. So with that, exactly. So with that, we want to start with, I'm going to hand the mic over, and we just want you to shoot out some questions. Let's start with a few questions that you guys have, then we're just going to let the night flow. So.
All right, Howard, start us out here. So a guy's got a turkey. Who's got a turkey tag in here? And kids, you should all raise your hand because you can get turkey tags. It's just kind of like you go. Yeah, we don't want to do that for our old people, but you kids, yeah, we'll hook you up. Anyway, Howard, so we got turkey tags. How do we start? What's the number one thing you got to do? What would you suggest we do to start and find out where to go in our particular unit? What's the first thing you're going to go look for?
Good question, Corky. Thanks. Put me on the spot first and foremost. All right. So normally, if I'm going to go to a unit, I try to hunt areas that I've hunt other animals in, right? So if you're a deer hunter, elk hunter, javelina hunter, not normally javelina are normally around turkeys that much, but you probably have been out elk hunting or deer hunting and you've seen turkey in that area. That's probably why you put in for that unit. You're probably familiar with that unit. So you want to just, hit areas you've seen turkeys in before. Because if they're there, they're going to continue to be there. Their habitat is not that big as far as the area that they travel to. They're not going to walk, 100 miles in a month or anything crazy like that. They're typically going to be in an area right around where you normally would see them, at least in a couple miles of that radius. And the other thing is check with Game and Fish, with the wildlife managers in that area. They're a great resource. They're there to help. So make a call into them and say, hey, I'm new to 4A or 5A or whatever unit you're going to hunt. Where would you suggest? And they'll give you ideas on where to go. And then pre-scouting. Actually, right now is a great time if you can get in the woods, if it's not snowed in, or walk into areas that you can't actually drive in, because the birds are there year-round. There's very few units in this state where the birds migrate out of their area. There might be an area where, like in 6A or 5A or 4A and 4B, the birds that are along the rim, they might drop off the rim, but normally they don't care about the weather. They're there year-round, just like the deer and the elk are. They're not normally going to leave that area where they're used to hunting or where you're used to hunting and seeing them. They're not going to go that far.
So Scott, so let's say that we've got that figured out now, and somebody, a game warden, and all your friends and buddies told you Knoll Lake is a place to go. Around Knoll Lake, what are you going to look for specifically around as far as the terrain goes? I mean, you've got the area that you want to be. You're going to be between Knoll Lake and, say, the Rim Road there. What are you going to look for? What helps us find a bird?
So you probably want to find a place, well, what's important, right? There's food, there's water, and there's shelter. So you're going to want to find a place, if there isn't a lot of standing water out and around, maybe find a place where they're going to do that. Find something that they're going to eat. Actually, they tend to spend more time at water holes eating than they do drinking water, believe it or not, because they like bugs. So spend time looking for that. I'm going to look for some decent sized hills with some big ponderosa pines on it that they're going to go to bed in. A lot of times you like to get those that are facing east, so that morning sun is going to hit them right in the face when it starts coming up. That's the kind of stuff I'm going to look for. This time of the year, if you happen to walk into a field and there's a lot of dandelions in it, that's a great place to be because it will draw bugs. They eat those dandelions. We've cut a few open and they're just packed full of those dandelions. So I'm going to look for those three things: food, water, and shelter. That's primarily where I'm going to start. See if I can find something. I like to be able to see too that they're going to gravitate to places where later on in the season, as they start laying eggs, where there's more ground cover. So you probably want to look for some of that too, but some place that you can get a good vantage point, because they're going to see you typically long before you see them.
Dave?
It's true, what they say. That's pretty much it, but I always look for roost trees and hills, high hills, so they can roost on. roosting turkeys is...
Everybody know what a roost tree looks like? Nope. What's a roost tree look like?
Roost tree is going to be your old growth ponderosa pines that have horizontal limbs that go out, and the turkeys fly up and they get on the horizontal limbs, and that's where they spend the night. And to find those, you have to be out there in the evening, and you can use locator calls. That's how you find turkeys. That's how I find turkeys. I mean, I find turkeys with scouting, of course, just like we all do the same thing. I mean, turkey hunting's turkey hunting. But I'm a big fan of roosting turkeys. If you roost a turkey at night, then you've got somewhere to go in the morning, hopefully, unless somebody else heard him. But
the reason you want to find them on a hill is because it's easier for them to fly into the tree than up to the tree. And if you've ever heard a turkey fly out of a tree, it's quite a commotion. Yeah, it's quite a commotion. So it's really easy for them to get up on top of a hill and fly straight into that tree.
do you understand that?
Does that make sense?
I've been on a ridge, on top of a ridge, and the big pine trees are still up here. Well, the turkey can take off from here right into the pine tree. Easy to do. And in the morning, they sail on out with the ground. And usually when they sail out, I look in places where the airplane can land. You understand? So they'll fly out in one like open areas. So they're going to fly out, plop down in them open areas. So if it's all thick over here, they're probably not going to go there. They're going to go in the open area.
Unless you're sitting in the open area, then they're going to go to the thick area. I mean, at least that's how it works for me.
Well, they're going to go that way. Right.
And they roost in the trees to stay away from the predators. So they sleep in the trees at night, and then during the early evening, right as it's getting dark, they're up in the tree, okay? Because their eyesight is not as good, and that's one of their main defense mechanisms besides their hearing and their sight. So they don't smell really well from everything I've been taught. So, full camo is important, all that stuff is. Showering is important, especially if you're hunting with Scott. But it's not as important as it would be for like an elk or a deer hunt, as you would think. So the three senses, the fourth one, the smell sense, is not one of their main defense mechanisms. And that's why they're roosting in the trees at night. And if you get out there, right, even like right now, it's perfect time to be out there. And then what noises normally happen this time of night, right? You're going to maybe make an owl hoot or do a coyote yelp, and you can get out on a finger ridge like the rim is famous for, right? All the different canyons, especially up by Knoll Lake. You got all the canyons and everything in those areas. You get out on a point and do a loud as you can coyote yelp, and you hear a gobbler fire off. You kind of pinpoint where that is. One trick, though, is don't keep doing it as cool as it is to listen to them gobble, unless you're going out now, because there's nobody out hunting. But if you're out locating them during hunting season, if you hear them gobble once, and you can find kind of what tree they're in or what area they're in, you can get there in the morning, and we'll talk about setting up and that kind of stuff in a little bit. But don't keep them gobbling, because there's probably somebody on the next ridge that's hearing the same bird, right? Or two ridges over, and now you're both going to be fighting over that bird in the morning.
So Dave, he's talked about a owl hoot.
Owl hoot.
Give me an owl hoot.
Well, I'll tell you what. In Arizona, our owls are different than the ones in the Midwest. Now, this owl hoot is what we use in Oklahoma, Missouri, stuff like that. It's who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. That's what it sounds like. But last year at the youth camp, the guy that was doing the registration said, "Did you hear the owl last night?" And I said, "No, I was sleeping." So he says, "There's an owl just right here." I said, "Well, what do you sound like?" And he says, "Just whoo, whoo." I said, "That's all he did?" So I'm like, "Well, that's what our owls do. They whoo, whoo." So, great. So that evening, I'm out there, whoo, whoo. Go, 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 go. I kid you not. I'm like, wow, that's all right. That'll work. But you want me to do this one?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Hold that.
Yeah.
Please. So this is what we do in the Midwest. It's who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. What we say, it says. But
Y'all down in the South. They
y'all.
got that.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole nother culture. So, that's pretty much it.
That's a barred owl, which we don't have in Arizona.
Nope.
But what Dave was saying, just that simple,
Shock.
just that real simple hoot will get them to fire off.
I use all kinds of locator calls. I mean,
Another call mentioned was a coyote, and we got lots of coyotes. What do you use for a coyote call?
got this little peacock call, and you can use a single reed diaphragm that I use, just hut with it, or you can. And that's really, really loud, and that carries a long, long ways. And when we talk about locator calls, if you're by yourself, you think, you got this call in front of your face, I don't care what you're using. I like to keep them short, just go ahead and do it and stop so you can hear that gobbler, because if you just carry on, if he gobbles, you might not hear it. So it's just, whatever you do, whether it's a crow call, just, that's it. Don't go on and on and on. Same with the coyote, same with the owl. Woo, woo, that works. You can buy those little tube hooters at the store. They work really good. Woo, woo, they make that good sound. It's not a loud sound. It's not something that you want to use like in a windy evening. We'll talk about the wind later. Yeah.
Now, a crow call, you use that kind of more midday?
Yeah, daytime.
Yeah, crows are out during the daytime, so you don't, coyotes, aren't really yelping during the day, so you can't really use you just want to mimic what's happening. Marv, he would actually elk bugle.
Yeah.
Because that's a natural sound. It's a shock type of thing, and those kind of things. But even I'm a bad coyote yelper, but I use a diaphragm, and it's just something high pitched. My first turkey hunt I ever went on, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, right? I get out of the truck, slam the car door, because we're just getting out hunting, right? So slam the door, boom, boom, boom. So slamming a car door will make them fire off. Don't recommend that one, but
Yeah, Dodge.
Yeah.
Dodge is a preferred one.
Right.
They feel sorry for you. They're like, the poor guy got his Dodge here. Let's call a little bit for him. Gobble, 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 gobble.
Yeah.
So, who's with me on that? Yeah,
I didn't see a bird for 3 days on that trip, but I heard them. They were around.
They'll give you a pity call every now and then. So, all right. So we've figured out where a bird is, and we got one that called. So next day, in order to be safe, we take a pretty good flashlight and we take our way, and we make sure we're seeing where we're going, because we're carrying around a shotgun, and we take this flashlight and we walk up with 100 yards or so. You guess of the tree. Make sure you look around, make sure the bird's not up there, and all that kind of stuff. Would you guys recommend that? Would you?
I would put the flashlight.
Yeah, from a light. Yeah.
I would put the flashlight in your vest and leave it off.
Yeah.
The only light that I'll carry into the woods in the morning, I have a little green pin light, and typically that's held with my thumb over it. And if you're hunting with kids, a flashlight is very helpful, in that you want to get in there as quietly as you can, and you don't want them falling down. And so if I carry a light, it's just a little green pin light, and it's used very, very sparingly.
It just kind of glows.
Yeah, it's very, very dim. But yeah, if you can get in there with no light, that would be the preference.
But you don't want to walk off a cliff either. So.
Yeah. But you'd be surprised when you get around in the woods at night. You can see pretty good. You got to turn your lights off on your vehicle and just let your eyes adjust for a little bit. Just sit there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you can see and kind of see where to get around. So you don't have to have a light. So.
And that goes to what time do you want to get in there? I don't know if you were going to that direction with the light question, but the earlier you can get there, probably the better off you are, because somebody else probably heard that same bird gobble or might be hunting that same area. Because there's a lot of tags in the different units, right? If you put in for a tag, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of folks to be out there. So you want to get in there early. And again, if you can see the green needles or green grass, those birds are getting ready to fly down. Okay, so you want to get in there when it's dark, or as dark as you can get in there. And typically at the youth camp, we're rolling out of camp at 4 a.m. and driving for half an hour. We want to be in the woods at 4:30, walking in, and that's early April. Okay, so just judge your time on how far you got to drive. If somebody's parked on the road where you thought you were going to go, you better have a backup plan. Leave them alone, go someplace else. And that's why it's good to get out early, because if you can be the first one there, then hopefully the next hunter is going to feel the same way and walk somewhere else and not walk over on top of you, especially if you got kids. and that kind of stuff. It's hard to drag them out of the woods or out of their bed at 3:30 in the morning, and it's hard to drag me out of the bed at 3:30 in the morning. And if you locate them the night before, it's okay to get semi-close with no light going on, but you don't want to get any closer than 100 yards, 150 yards to that roost tree, but you want to be able to get over by it, especially if it's the next canyon over and you're not familiar what's on the other side. You know, you might want to walk around there if you're in early enough that you can walk around a little bit and see where they might fly down or where they might fly or walk to after they fly down.
And that's the other thing about moving in there in the dark is there's other stuff moving around the woods in the dark too, right? I mean, there's elk, there's deer, there's stuff moving around. So if stuff is moving around in there and you're moving around deliberately, you're not running to get to that roost tree, you can make a little noise and not bugger them. But if it's dark, they're not going to see. They're not going to know exactly what.
So Ray, you're the perfect guy for this next question. If a Dodge, because it's probably the loudest vehicle on the planet, if you're say you got a bird on a point, how far back do you want to park? Say a road dead ends on a point. You think he's on the point. How far do you feel comfortable driving down there, saying that physical ailments aren't a problem? You wouldn't take your truck. Okay, Mr. Polaris. Yeah, shame on me. I picked up one guy in the crowd. Anyway, so Mr. Polaris, you've got your strap and you got your helmet on, your safety goggles on your Polaris. So
it depends on the terrain. But if I can,
my point is, how far back away from a bird you're going to be. I would not, me personally, if I put a bird on a point, I don't want to, half a mile. It's a long way. And take the time in the morning because it's cold out there. It's really cold. And we talked a couple times, I heard kids mention 3 or 4 times. I've done it a lot with my kids. Trust me, make sure that they are really heavily clothed because they get cold. So do you, but they get cold. And what I learned is if you carry one of those cheap felt camo blankets, it's a double purpose thing. It keeps the wind, if there's a little wind or breeze blowing, because that's what's cold on kids. If you have one of those and you get up to the tree, you can just sit there in that tree. They back up normally right in your lap. That's what I tell you to do with the kids. Put them right there because little guys or first timers, just have them near you because you can't be looking around saying, hey, the bird's coming. You got to have them where you can control them. But if you put that blanket around you, you both kind of benefit off of some heat. And but the biggest deal is the fidgets when they're sitting there and they got a stick that they want to snap and all that. You know what? You're not going to stop them from doing that. Why keep fighting something that won't? You can tell them, be still. You know how it goes. Moms, be still, kids. Yeah, that works all the time. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. So you got to figure out a way to do something around it. But if you got a blanket that you put over them, they can do whatever they want to underneath that blanket. And it normally, it's just the blanket will just do that or whatever. But it's not going to be something where they actually see a turkey sees you. Because when that happens, it's over. Then it's no fun for nobody when they see you. So anyway, Ray parked his Dodge that was pulling his Polaris. He parked that a half a mile away, and he's walked down there. He's gotten to what he thinks. What's the average distance? And I know the terrain and all that matters too, but how far back do you normally like to be?
maybe 150 yards.
150, same?
Yeah, I would say
150.
150.
Closest I can get.
Closest you can get without
Boogering them, yeah.
never ever getting to the point where a bird can actually see you.
He's up in the tree.
Yeah. So you would stay back 200 if you thought, you know what, if I keep going, that bird's going to see me.
Right.
So you'd rather be back 200 not noticed than you had 150 and possibly seeing them.
I'll stay back.
Because I'll tell you that a turkey, anything in a tree, looking around, sees really good. That's why we get up in tree stands and stuff, because you can see really good, and they will pick you off, and they'll pick you off a long way away, and you don't want that to happen. That's why I made the funny thing about the light, so yeah.
Well, and the terrain is important, because if you remember, we talked about them being up in the tree and then flying down onto that flat area, and again, we all know it's not flat, right? There's little undulations in the ground. So I normally, again, try to set up to where like 100, 150 yards away from the roost tree, but then I also try to set up to where when that bird's coming towards me, he doesn't really know where I am until he's at like 30, 40 yards and I'm pulling the trigger, okay? So if there's a little, crest to the hill, I might be on the back side of that crest even if he's on this side, because he's gonna fly down, walk over that little bit of a crest, And as soon as his head comes up and I can see the beard, right? Because everybody knows you got to shoot it with a beard, right? Okay, cover that real quick. Once you can see that beard, then you can pull the trigger and shoot the bird.
What if it's a female with a beard?
You shoot that one too. So, yeah.
There are some circus
There
animals.
are.
Probably not, but
Preferred, yeah. Not your best choice, but again, there's...
you're legal.
Yeah.
Legal.
And this
Okay.
you guys can come up and look at later, but, so these are just different age birds. So this is what we call a jake. And this looks like feathers basically sticking out. And that's what most of us will see our first time hunting, is that hen that's got ruffled feathers right here. That's not a beard, it's just feathers, okay? So don't shoot her too quick. But these are younger birds. I just kind of brought some different length ones. This is probably a suicide jake. Where's Rich?
Where's Rich? Suicide 2-year-old.
2-year-old, okay, and then these are more mature birds. And then the spurs that went along with them. These were so small that their spurs were not even showing, okay? And yes, I did shoot both of these, okay? And I still kept the beards.
All right, so are you guys getting it? Is this helping? Is this, you like this scenario, this kind of format? All right, yeah, great.
One thing you're talking about on your setup, the training is probably the most important thing next to how many birds are you talking to and how early you get into the woods. Because when it's pitch ass dark and you get your eyes adjusted, if I can get 75 yards from the roost tree and I got one bird, I will. But a lot of times you'll get those dummy jakes that are sitting over 2 trees over and the hens, and the only bird that'll answer you is the tom. And then what happens is the tom will come down and the jakes will come down and then the hens will come in. And then you know that's when you really have a problem if you've gotten too close, when the hens start to talk. Because if they're close to him, he's going to come down and go to those hens. And if you're too far back, you can't make a move on him with a call. I'm not talking about getting up and physically move, but it's a
Great point.
It's a guessy game.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you're not gonna have any idea how many hens are up in those trees.
Because
And they're not all gonna go to the same tree.
Right.
That was a great
No.
point too.
No.
They're not all gonna go to the same
They
tree.
don't start talking until it gets too light for you to move.
Exactly.
That's the whole trick.
So yeah, and that's the those are the dice you roll.
Yep.
Depending
Yeah.
on how you want
I
it.
just think that if I can, and I go out in the pitch dark, I mean, it's dark. If it's moon, then I do some snaky stuff through the trees, because if you wake that bird up, he's gonna see something moving.
Yeah, and they'll fly right over you, because
Yeah.
I've had that happen where
I've done that too.
we had a bunch of turkeys in one tree, and there was a bunch in this other tree that we didn't know about, because the ones that only made noise the night before were in this tree.
That's right.
And we set up underneath the tree that had the birds in it.
Yep.
And these birds all flew over us, and these birds flew away from us. And Marv and I sat there and went, "Oh, that was fun to watch."
It's a guessy kind of deal.
Yeah. And we were probably 100 yards from that other tree, but those other birds were on the tree we had our backs against too.
All right, so you want to keep movement limited. Once you decide where you're going to set up, let's say that everything works out good, the hens are down the hill and the tom is to your left, and you feel like you got a pretty good spot. Say Mike's your turkey back there. Mike's texting in everybody, but anyway, so we'll point him out. But he's your turkey. What does it look like? I'm going to use you because you're probably the most limber out of all of us up here. What side of the tree are you going to set on? Because that matters, because you don't want to be shuffling around. Say you call and the bird bails out. What does your setup look like if you think that turkey is going to come from where Mike is? Show this audience what it should look like. I mean, do you set like this? Or how do you set up?
So I shoot right-handed, so I'm going to set just about like this.
Tree to your back.
Tree to my back.
It's on the tree.
Howard's the tree. But if I'm sitting up against the tree like this, and that bird's coming from where Mike is, now I've got from here to here to shoot. So I've got pretty much, 180 degrees where he may go. So for me, you got to get comfortable. You got to find a decent sized tree to put your back against. If you're not comfortable, you're going to fidget. You're going to move. And like Corky said earlier, you don't want to do that. That's part of having a good vest.
Show us what a good vest looks like and why.
Well, Howard has it. I don't know if it's-
Yeah, this is a vest. I'm not gonna say it's a good one, but
But the most important thing is that right there is that seat cushion. You guys have sat in the Arizona woods. I mean, there's no place without a rock or a stick or something underneath you. There just isn't. So you want something to sit on to where you can get comfortable. You want to get comfortable. For me, I always pull my knees up. It just, whatever gets comfortable with you, that way I can keep my gun right here as well.
you wear shoes or do you wear sandals?
I wear flip-flops and
Okay.
plaid shirts when I turkey hunt. But yeah, that's how I would set up for that bird right there. I would put him on my left-hand side.
So a quick point of reference is always point your shoulder at where you think the bird's coming. That's the best way of it's quick, just, yeah. That way you got a full swing.
Because
Okay.
if you're wrong, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Now, I know Rich practices shooting left hand and right hand. I'm not that talented. So I stick with just shooting the way I shoot. But if you can do that, then you're way ahead of the game.
All right, so
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
we found a turkey. We know how to set up on it. What's going to get that turkey to us? So show me what you're going to do, what your call sequence is going to be. And I know that this varies as far as anything that goes on, but where are we pointing at? Oh, yes, sir.
What's your feelings on blinds?
I think blinds are great if you're hunting with kids.
Or your bow hunting.
Or your bow hunting, yeah.
I hunt a lot out of blinds. A turkey is one of the smartest animals I know and the dumbest that I know, all in the same breath, because a blind, Dad and I learned in the early days, we used to try and set up our blind back in the bushes and worried about that. Not now. If we're on an old 2-track road, we'll set it up in the middle of the road because the turkey's going to pick probably the most open path to us when he comes out of the tree. They pay no attention to a blind whatsoever. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. I mean, they see better than any animal I know that we hunt, but they don't worry about taking your blind and brushing it in and all that. I know we've run off more turkeys putting up blind. I got blind stories that you wouldn't believe, but anyway, blinds don't, just set them up where you're at. Set them up where you got a good shot around you is what I think you should do on blinds, especially if you're hunting with decoys, which, I'm the bow guy up here. If I'm going to hunt turkeys, that's what I'm going to do. I want decoys because I got to get them in pretty close. I want them to come to those decoys. And we'll talk about decoys in a minute, but what's the call sequence that you're going to use? And tell us, don't just show us, but we'd like to know why you're doing, kind of explain real quick. And each of you, I know, have probably a different kind of thing that you do, but so each of you spend just a couple minutes on it.
So I'm assuming we have a gobbler out there, and he might be, I don't know, it depends on how far he is. The closer a gobbler gets, the lower I get as far as calling goes, because you don't stay loud once you have a gobbler located. So what I normally do, I'll just purr a little bit, maybe a few clucks, and then see what happens. And he's kind of going to tell me, the turkey's going to tell me what's going on. If he gobbles right back, then he's a gamer as far as I'm concerned. And you might go ahead and just put on a few yelps, see what happens again. And if he's coming closer, and you can tell, but he gobbles again, he's getting closer, maybe you shouldn't do anything. Just sit there and just wait. A lot of times we just have to sit here and wait. And if you can see him especially, just soft calling. You don't have to, the loud calling's over. The only time I do loud calling is to locate turkeys. That's it. Once I got a turkey, the game is on, he's out there, it's clucks and purrs, soft yelping, and probably not a lot of it. It just depends. But if he's, it depends on who you are. If he's firing back, I got to fire back. I mean, that's just how I am. I'm kind of an aggressive hunter, and some people just want to sit there for 6 hours. I can't do that. If he comes in, which he probably will, with or without decoys, just go ahead and shoot him. That's it. But loud stuff is over with, and you got a turkey out here. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be a lot different. I think it kind of depends on what the bird's telling you.
Right.
You're going to start with something real quiet, tree
Give me
yelps.
something real quiet. Let's hear what we're talking about.
Is he still in the roost?
No.
Could be.
Yes.
Oh, he get there before light?
Still up, yeah.
He's still up?
Yeah, if you hear the gobbler and you got into that 50 to 150 yards or whatever, you're comfortable with, and that bird is in the tree, I normally want them to know that I'm over here and I'm a hen, because that's what we're doing. We're calling like hens, okay? In my personal opinion, if you ever gobble in the woods, you're crazy because somebody's going to shoot at you, okay? I know how to make a gobble with my mouth call and all that stuff, and it's fun. The kids get a kick out of it, or that kind of stuff. But I don't ever gobble in the woods in public land, because there's somebody else out there that wants to shoot that gobbler, right? So they're going to come to me if I'm gobbling. So the tree yelp is just, I do it really quick and really soft, and I don't overdo it. I just want that gobbler that's in that tree to know, oh, wait a minute, there's another hen over there, and I got hens over here, and I've got a hen over here. I know who these ladies are. I'm going to go see what the new lady's like. So I'll do it just so he knows I'm there. So when he does fly down, he's going to walk my direction. Hopefully. Well, yeah.
Do that again, Dave.
Yeah.
It's early morning. Pretty soft.
I may not even go that loud, honestly.
No, you can quiet it.
Yeah. But that's like that, to me, that's what I usually start with, is something that's that quiet that just basically says,
They're just waking up.
yeah.
And if you're close enough, you'll hear the hens making that noise.
Sure.
And so what you want to do is duplicate what they're making, because they're talking, as they're waking up, they're talking. And they're not, they may not fly down for a half an hour after you hear, they'll gobble for a half an hour, 45 minutes before they ever fly down.
So that's a slate call that you're using with the striker. Give me a box call. Same deal. What are you going to do with a box call?
Okay, with a box call, most box calls, pretty loud.
Yeah, the slate's going to be the best for like the tree yelp, or the, that real soft, because you can control it. Most box calls are going to be too loud for that, to get that low.
Larry, what do you like about a box call? What do you use a box call for most of the time? I'm talking to you.
I use the box call after they're down. If you got a dominant hen making a lot of noise, I'll imitate that, and it probably come back pretty hard on her, because she's more likely to come over than the gobbler is. If she comes over, the gobbler's going to.
Once it gets daylight, stuff is up, and you don't hear as good as you do right at the crack of daylight, So that's why you use a box.
And Larry brought up a good point. It's Larry, right?
Yeah.
He brought up a good point. If the birds are on the ground since we're already there, and you're talking to them, the hen is the one that you're going to try to dominate. Because if you ever seen two ladies argue, okay, sorry ladies that are in the room, they're talking over. Yeah. Nobody brought a shotgun today, right? Yeah, okay, good. They're talking over each other, right? If they're fighting. And that's the same way that you want to do with that hen. If you hear a hen talking, you want to match her, cut her off, interrupt, whatever word you want to talk about, and just, start hammering back at that, because that hen's going to come your direction and say, all right, I've had enough of this. I want to fight you. And so she's going to come, but guess what? The gobbler's going to come with her, okay? Because that dominant hen controls it, just like my wife does, controls our house, okay?
You guys heard her calling it a dominant hen, is what he called it.
Yeah.
That's how you money out of that.
Yes, right? This is on tape, right? I'm in trouble already. Yeah.
And cut.
Take two. So that's over talking them, cutting them off. Those kind of things are real important when they're down on the ground. In the tree, you just want them to know you're over there, so they come over and say, hey, let's go see what's going on over there.
And once the gobbler's down and the hens are talking on the ground, that gobbler's not going to gobble anywhere near as much as he was.
Right.
No, he's not.
Sometimes you won't hear him again.
Yeah. Yeah, the most gobbling you hear typically is in the tree.
He's in a tree.
Yeah.
Like you said, dominant hen, the gobbler's going to always follow the hens. So wherever the hens go, he's going to go. So just remember that. They take off that way, he's going to follow them. Always. Unless they go off to the nest later in the morning, then he's going to be by himself, and that's a good time to kill 2-year-old suicide turkeys. Go ahead.
So when you're soft calling early in the morning like that, how much is too much?
That's the question of the night.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask Glenn, what do you think the biggest mistake most turkey hunters make in the woods are? Too much calling.
That's the mistake. Most callers, duck callers, all callers.
Yes.
Just want to keep yelling, and that doesn't work.
So I have a rule of thumb when I sit down and if I call, I look at my watch and I don't call for the next 15 minutes. I work, it is everything I have to not, I just want to call because I like calling, it's fun and you get the reaction. But I will look at my watch and I will work really, really hard to not call for the next 15 minutes. Now, if something else transpires, if something else happens, there's always different scenarios, but yeah, I work really hard to try.
And you'll be amazed when you're calling like that. If you call and you get a gobble, you put your calls down, you get your gun ready because they're coming. Because they answered your call, right? So you don't want to just keep calling and they're going to keep, because if you're calling, one of the things that the hen or the gobbler is thinking, and I use the bar analogy, sorry, but the big strong guy standing at the bar with 6 ladies around him and an attractive lady walks into the bar, he's still all puffed up and everything, but he's got 6 ladies with him. He's not going to run over here to chase that one unless there's a good reason to. And if you keep talking to him, doing all that stuff, he's like, yeah, that's too much hassle. I'm not going to mess with that. I got 6 ladies here with me already. I don't have to move around. So they're going to want that hen to come to them if you call too much. So if they gobble and you answer and they gobble and you answer, or you answer and they gobble, they're thinking you're coming to them but if you don't show up, now they're going to go, well, wait a minute, what happened to her? I better go check to see what's going on. And they'll pick the tree you're sitting under, walking, 300 yards away if they gobble, and they don't gobble at all, and all of a sudden they're coming, they're looking right at you. It's spooky to know, you would think, oh, they're going to look in the area, and you're full camo, face mask, everything, and they'll look right at the tree you're sitting under, and they gobble 300 yards away.
Anybody here got a little bit of ADD? Just maybe a little bit? Okay. Yeah. For those of us, I'm with you. Biggest problem we have turkey hunting is what? We call, they answer, they shut up. You can hear when the bird changes and gets down on the ground. What do we say to ourselves? They're not coming. They're not coming. We need to move. We need to get closer, right? That's what we do. And I can't tell you how many times I stand up, I go 20 yards and putt, 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 and there they go. Or you go across the draw and you look back where you have been setting for 30 minutes and they're all puffed up all around your tree going, where you at, man? I'm here. So the biggest deal is you're trying to create the illusion of them coming to you. And I know with the ADD deal, Dad and I have hunted turkeys. We hunt like 2-3 reservations every year, best we can. One of the places we hunt is in the cedars, so you get to see a long way. So the birds are kind of limited where they're roosting at. They're right down in the bottoms in some pine trees. So we see these birds. We actually see them in the tree where we're calling from. And we watch when they leave the tree and they hit the ground. And so we could see these birds. How long does it take a bird to get there? That's the question of the night too. I can tell you it's 3 times longer than you think it is. And at no time, the last bunch of birds we got into on San Carlos, at no time they were not coming our way. And it took 45 minutes for them to get there. And we were only 200 yards away. And they didn't fly out, they were on a flat. They hopped out. They just, all of a sudden, a big old gobbler just flip, 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 boom, and just hit the ground. They all strutted out, and it took them forever to get our way. But at no time, like I said, we're looking at them the whole time. They were coming our way. You don't get to see that in the woods. You don't know that's happening, but they are coming. So I can just tell you that patience is our biggest nemesis, those of us that do that. If you'll learn to figure out, I'm going to hunt half of what I normally hunt. I'm not going to try and cover all that country. I'm going to pick one good spot and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to love that lady till it's over. I'm going to keep dancing this dance until the music is over and done. And sometimes when you think it's done, all of a sudden one just pops up. I don't know how they get around. I don't know how these turkeys sometimes out of nowhere, all of a sudden they're standing right there in front of you with a big old red head and a fan out. I don't know how they got there. You guys have that experience too? Yeah, it's crazy. That's what makes turkey hunting fun. So, agreed, you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great way to learn that is to hunt with kids.
Yeah.
If you're out hunting with kids, you can't move around a lot, right? You've got too many moving parts. I experienced that one year at the youth camp. There were 6 of us. Were you guys with us that year? Yeah, that Nathan fell asleep on the tree?
Yeah.
We worked this bird for 2 hours, and he was on the other side of a canyon. They're sitting on one tree facing this way. I got a guy and his daughter on this tree facing this way, and the guy that I'm hunting with is sound asleep on this tree. He is sawing logs. And that bird's coming, and I move back behind him a little bit and call, and that bird walked out in front of him. He should have killed it 4 times. But it took forever to get there, but we could not move because there were just too many of us. And it was a great lesson that just sit still. It was a great lesson.
Any questions at this point that anybody's got a question that they want answered that we haven't covered in that topic? Yeah.
How do you get them to talk when they're not talking?
Good. That's a good
You
question.
just got to sound cuter.
Yeah, you don't sound sexy enough.
Now remember, just like we just talked, in my opinion, just because they're not talking doesn't mean they're not coming.
That's right.
That's
Believe it or not, there are hens in the world that don't yap, yap, yap all the time. Anyway, no, I figured I'd join Howard. He's talking about bars and his loudest hen woman wife. I don't know. Howard, we're in the boat together.
Sucked in, Corky.
Yeah, we're sinking. But just because you're not hearing them doesn't mean they're not heading your way. So, yes, sir.
What if they're just a little bit out of range? What kind of call are you going to do to kind of pique their interest and get them a little bit closer? If they're just kind of skirting around the outs, doesn't happen very
You
often.
mean like he's hung up?
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole nother story right there. The hung up turkey's been going for days about that, but just keep calling to him, see what he's gonna do. If he's gonna take off, let him take off. And you can either reset up or reposition yourself. You know, if he's going down this way, and if you can get around that way, get out ahead of him, and just go back to soft calling. That's worked for me a lot of times. If your setup goes bad for some reason, or he hangs up out there and it's just not gonna work, and you sit there and you've done everything you possibly could, and it's like, well, you know, okay, just let him walk off. Let him walk off. And, you know, I always have a little pair of binoculars, and I'll watch that turkey go out there as far. And when I think everything's cool, I'll get up and I'll go all the way around if I have to, and set up again and try it again. That's worked.
Yeah, and in Arizona, you know, where you have all the little fingers, right? You know, if you're hunting in canyon type areas, they're typically not going to leave that ridge top, especially if there's good food on there. Okay, so if you're on this, you know, finger canyon like this, and you're back here and the birds fly down, and then all of a sudden you hear them walking away from you, you know, go over to this side, try to get in front of them, okay? And because they're typically going to make like a big circle and come back to that tree at the end of the day, okay? So you want to try to get in front of them, and you'll know their sound. And I don't just get up as soon as if they gobble at me and they sound like they're coming, and then they gobble and it sounds like they're going away. That could be just something as simple as they turn their head, okay? They could actually be 20 yards closer and just gobble in this direction. I'm sitting here, but the first time they were looking right at me, and it sounds, so I wait a little bit, because if they're leaving, they're leaving. You're not going to outrun them. You're not going to run around in front of them. So, you know, but make sure that they're leaving and not just turn their head and gobbling a different direction.
If you're hunting with someone, if there's a couple of you, and one of you's calling and one of you's shooting, send the caller 30 yards behind you.
Okay.
To make it sound like he's going that direction.
Yeah, the hen's leaving.
Question
He's
or
like, well, wait a
comment
minute,
from our
how's she
furry
leaving?
friends in the corner.
Yo.
You know, what worked for me is when I sit down, I'll usually grab a stout branch, keep it right by my side. Because if they get close enough to where you know they're there, but they can't see you, you can't see them, and you want them to come in, so make a turkey sound like scratching in the dirt like they do. And it said to them, it sounds like there's a bird over here feeding, and they'll sometimes come over there and check it out.
And you had a question?
Yeah, speeding and drumming. I always hear that term, speeding and drumming. You know, you know what? You know, a gobble, but what spit and drum?
So when they gobble, they puff up, right? Everybody's seen the videos, I'm sure, or seen pictures of the turkey all strutted up. And then that spitting and drumming is coming out of their gullet right here, you know, that big puffy part in the front. So that's the noise they make. You'll only really typically hear that if you're within 50 yards of them. You don't hear that.
Yeah, if then.
If then. I very rarely have ever heard it in the wild, except for watching videos.
Yeah, we heard that one.
Because they have to be almost on top of you to hear that, but they're going boo, boo, And that's just their noise they're making to attract the female. They're getting all puffed up to attract her to, look at my fancy feathers, right? Because most birds, the most beautiful of the bird species is the male bird, not the female, because they're using that to attract the females. So, I'm just, that's nature.
If you hear spitting and drumming, you're typically not going to hear it right out in front of you, because if you're able to hear that, you should have already killed him. You may hear it behind you.
Right.
You may be set up facing Mike the turkey, and all of a sudden back here you hear this. You're like, oh shoot! Now I got to pull a Rich and shoot with the wrong hand. So that's the only time I've ever heard it, is when it's pretty much too late. That's about the only time I've heard it.
But that's when they're spitting and drumming and those kind of things. Yeah.
Good with how it sounds. It's pretty much what it sounds like. It's kind of, some people call it a hum. Only was spitting and drumming, or it's just pretty much, you might hear that.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to hear.
And you may go, what in the world is that?
And then all of a sudden, them in the back of your...
When they do the spit, they shake.
Yeah, their whole body just quivers.
You'll hear the wings sometimes.
They're actually making that drumming sound with their feathers, right? They're kind of just, yeah. It's the coolest sound ever.
Yeah.
That's what we do it for.
It is. It's an awesome
If you
sound.
go to a barnyard, there's a male turkey, go,
Yep.
and he will instantly fluff up.
Go to the zoo and do it. It's a blast. I always take turkey calls when we go to the zoo.
Yeah. Penguins hate them. SeaWorld almost kicked me out. Penguins hate turkey calls. Don't ask me how I know that. The other thing, you talked about blinds, real quick. I always carry this. It's kind of ratty and old. I probably need a new piece, as you can see. But I always carry a bigger piece than this, even, and I put that on me. So if I am calling, I got my hands covered so they can't see me, especially if you got kids or smaller people or whatever. And then also you can hang this over a bush. And we talked about the tree and why you have your back to a tree. Just to cover that real quick, it breaks up your outline. It's something as simple as that. It also keeps you from getting shot in the back by some other crazy hunter that's out there that is just shooting blind or being stupid out there, okay? So be safe out there. That's why the tree is important to be around you. And it also breaks up the camouflage part of your body.
And camo's easy, head to toe.
Yeah.
You gotta have camo head to toe. I don't know that one camo's better than the other. You're just looking for something that breaks up a design.
I really prefer my bottoms and my top not to match.
Yeah.
Two different ones. Taylor hunts in a pair of dark brown jeans.
Yeah. Good, all right.
And those of us that have white hair, it's come back to haunt me now, but 30 years ago, Dad got a nickname called the Squirrel Man. That's my dad back there with the white hair. He looked like a squirrel when he was up in a tree. He was all camouflaged, but me and Russell said, look, there's Grandpa. He's doing this. You can see that squirrel, so we named him Squirrel Man, but anyway, so I'm just glad I got here at this stage in my life, whether it's white or not. But, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Yeah.
Watches.
Hands are a big deal.
Yeah, watches, shiny watches.
Are a big deal too.
You have a question back there, sir?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that they're going to be in the same spot that they were before. The last couple of years it's been dry, and they've been basically going to the same roost tree all the time, or in the same location, relatively location all the time. This year is totally different with lots more moisture and lots more available. Do you still think they're going to be in the same roost tree? Are they going to be consistently in the same area year in and year out with the change in weather patterns?
Typically, yes, they're going to be in the same area. Arizona is one of those unique states where they don't normally use the same roost tree. Arizona, Colorado, I do some hunting up there. Hardly ever do you find them year after year. Like you in the Midwest, if you go to a river bottom in the Midwest and there's easterns or whatever, there's I've seen pictures of, piles of bird poop like this thick because they're roosting in the same tree day in and day out for years. Arizona's not like that. It's very sporadic. They might pick this tree one year and, or even in the same week. So you'll find droppings around trees, but they don't necessarily go back to that same exact tree. But they might be in 100 yards of that tree from one night to another. The biggest thing is going to be, with the weather change and the moisture now, I think some pre-scouting is going to be important, like Scott said, with the dandelions and the meadows and all that kind of stuff. They were probably more water than they will be this year. I wouldn't expect water to be as important because everything's going to have water in it, right? every drainage, every little mud hole is going to be wet, all those kind of things this year where we've not had that luxury in years
And
past.
with all the green stuff that we'll have for them to eat,
Right.
they'll get a ton of moisture just out of what they're eating.
Yeah, they don't have to drink water. They get enough moisture eating the green grass with the dew on it and that kind of stuff. So they don't have to go to water.
So any other, yeah.
Yeah, so you had mentioned this earlier, and I really want to know this one. We went up to Unit 1 by Big Lake, and the wind blew hard 3 days in a row, all day, all night. Obviously.
Welcome to springtime in Arizona.
Freezing to death. Finally gave up, said, the last morning we're sleeping in, we're going to get up, make a nice breakfast, and they were gobbling all over the place. So the wind. How about the wind?
The wind, so this call right here is your friend in the wind. It's called a long box. It's really high pitched, and you can make it really, really loud. The challenge that you have in the wind is they can't always hear you, and then you can't always hear them either. So Howard and I were hunting with our kids one year, and I thought my tent trailer was going to blow away. And our alarm clock went off at 3:30 in the morning, and he sat up and I sat up, and I said, no way. We slept till 9 o'clock. And we went out at 9 o'clock, and the wind was blowing so hard that he's in a blind in that corner with his son, and I'm in a blind in that corner with my daughter, and I couldn't hear him calling. So there is no easy answer for the wind.
Yeah, the long box will reach out longer. The louder and higher you can get. But again, you may not hear the gobble back. And that's where if you found them in the roost tree the night before and it's blowing, just go sit. The other thing that, there's a lot of birds killed at between 10 and 2 o'clock when most guys are back at camp, right? You're in the woods at 3:30 in the morning. All of a sudden it's 10 o'clock. You've been up for 6 hours and you're like, man, I'm hungry. Let's go back, cook a big lunch, enjoy ourselves. The birds know that. They're out, they're moving all day. They're feeding, they're moving, they're doing all that stuff. So, unless it's a social event, which again, it's hunting, right? That's part of it, is being social and having fun with your friends and whoever your family that's up there. And I'm all for going back to camp, taking a nap, but I just as rather take a nap by a tree out in the woods, make myself comfortable, that kind of stuff. So don't be afraid to stay out all day, pack some snacks.
The key to turkey hunting is you got to go, whether it's blowing or not. It's nasty if it is blowing, but you still got to go. Real quick story, and then we'll take a break. We'll come back in about 5 minutes. But on the wind story, Dad and I and Jim Bedlin and this old guy Otis Baker were up in St. Carlos hunting. It was blowing wind, crazy. It was cold in the morning. Wind was hitting, or rain's hitting our tent. You just got that feeling that somebody's sitting there looking at you. Otis was an old guy that he got up at 1 o'clock to cook biscuits before we went out. And he's just sitting there, and Otis was a weird dude. He'd just sit there and stare at you, and you're laying there in your bed, and you wake up, and there's your buddy sitting there staring at you. Otis, is there something wrong or something? Well, just want to know if you guys are going to lay there all day, or are we going to go turkey hunting? It's like, Otis, don't you hear the wind? Yeah. I also know that a turkey at night is up on a tree. We got to hunt them when we're out of the trees. So we need to go. And finally, I wasn't going, and Dad and Jim got sick of hearing Otis, and finally, Dad told Jim, take him, get him out. He said, I'll get him out of camp. Gee whiz, he's driving us crazy. Otis was about 84 at that time. They didn't get to the end of the camp, and big old Tom went walking across the road. Otis got out and shot it. And the worst part, was hearing it for the next 3 days. I told you birds, and he called it birds. I told you guys, lay in camp around. You'll never kill nothing. You got to get out there amongst them. So he wasn't wrong. But wind is horrible. But you got to go. They're still out there. That bird didn't just decide, I'm not going down to eat and feed and water today because it's windy. They're going to go out. So you just go off the stuff that you know. So why don't we come back in about 5 minutes, and we'll talk about some equipment stuff, some shot, and if anybody plan on bow hunting a turkey? All right, I got some stuff for bows that we'll cover real quick too. So we'll come back in about 5 minutes, about 5 till 8.
Open Country Optics. Open Country Optics is your #1 online source for optics and optics rentals. With quality Swarovski glass before your eyes, Open Country Optics brings the game closer. Rentals include a tripod, binos, and you can even add on a phone scope or foldable chair to glass from. All of the optics arrive in a durable Pelican case with insulated foam. You won't find any other company who provides you an all-inclusive package like Open Country Optics. Visit them today at opencountryoptics.com. Use promo code BHAZ and get 5% off rentals or $50 off any optics purchase. Open Country Optics, bringing the game closer. Scent Assassin. Scent Assassin, the new leader in scent elimination. Scent Assassin manufactures the latest technology in scent elimination spray, body wash, and laundry detergent. Forget the wind, hunt anywhere, anytime. Check out their full product line at scentassassin.com. Use promo code BOWHUNTINGAZ for 20% off your order.
Some more turkey feathers if anybody, or adults too, if you want a turkey feather.
All right, I asked the kid earlier today, I said, you realize what the original founding fathers wanted our national bird to be? Turkey. And he didn't know that it was a turkey, but he did know who Tupac was, so I don't know where we're at. I'm teasing. Real quick, I want to cover, there's a couple bow hunters here, right? A couple of bow hunters. So I'll tell you that on turkey, I've killed a lot with a bow. That's my thing I like to do. So I hunt a lot of turkeys. When you bow hunt, you're going to hunt a lot, trust me, because with a shotgun, sometimes it's over when you get them in close. With a bow, sometimes it's not going to happen. The main thing with a bow is you can't start your draw or anything like that with any part of the bird visible. So that's why blind works really good, and or listening, like we were talking about the strutting going on. Probably one of the best guys that I ever learned how to hunt turkeys. Well, two guys, Tom Dalrymple and Norm Pint, both are gone now, but I know Norm used to tell me that he would put out decoys and he would stay behind a big tree and he would wait until he heard it in strut, because even a surprise turkey coming out of a strut takes a couple of seconds before it'll take off. So he would draw and he would step out from the tree or whatever he would do, or come alongside of the tree to where he could see the bird. So, but that's one thing on a bird. But broadhead wise, shoot something that's a mechanical. That's one thing that I think mechanicals are really good for. Especially one that shoots with a big wide blades, because you're just it's not about penetration. Is not a problem at all on a turkey. You want to do as much damage as you possibly can, and the rule on a turkey is shoot them low, watch them go, shoot them high, watch them die. Everything on a turkey that you're trying to kill, and we'll segue into some shot things that we want to have. Everything on a turkey is up on top and on its back. So with a bow, you're not necessarily going to do like we would with a shotgun here, where you're aiming, right underneath at the wattle and all that being your center port of your aim. You're going to be aiming at the bird itself. So you want to kind of come straight up the leg. That way, if you're a little low and you break a leg, that's good. The bird will normally go down, and I don't know, there's theories on whether when you shoot a bird, you go right after it before it has a chance to kind of settle and figure out what's going on. But I don't know, and I've seen both sides work on that. But with a bow, most of the time you're shooting in the middle of it. You're shooting in the middle of the bird. But just, if you can, just make sure you don't shoot low. You shoot them low, you shoot them through the breast or whatever, especially if you shoot them through the side. Shoot them low, watch them go, shoot them high, watch them die. So, because everything up on a turkey, like on their back, their spine is right along the top of their feathers, their lungs are all up there and all that. Which I want to bring that into shot just real quick. We just did this, Mike and I did a turkey demonstration at Cabela's this past weekend, and Cabela's gave us some shells to try, and they had this one new shell that they call this TSS. Now, we shot these with a 3.5-inch Magnum shell, the big shells, so you don't have to do that. You'll know you shoot that when you pull the trigger. You'll know that it was 3.5 inches, but you don't feel it when you're turkey hunting, and don't put a kid on this. It'll be a one-and-doner, probably, if they do that. But all I really want to point out is that every shell will shoot differently, okay? So you got to find a shell that your gun likes. You do want to use a full choke or an extra full choke, something that tightens up the load as much as you can, because it's all about getting BBs in that head, neck, and or if these are pink, these are considered dead birds. If it's yellow, you're going to hit the bird, and then if it's white, that's sky anyway. But it's important to get get these things and try them. It's kind of fun to do too, to go out there and test different shots. This is a 25 yards with what they call the Longbeard, the Winchester Longbeard. That's these shells here. You'll see them at Cabela's. They've got these. This is the TSS, which we were talking about that the other day, what a TSS shell is doing. Do we have that here?
Yeah, it's over here, Corky.
You see that thing over there? That is what TSS does to a bird at 25 yards. And look even at the 50-yard pattern on a TSS, they're expensive. So you guys are excited, you think, oh wow, I found a shell that I'll shoot. They're $10 a shot if you want to do one of those. Yeah, I've got 3 shells left out of that 5 box that they gave me, and if you guys have your Visa card, you can buy one of them. But just, you see the devastation that did at 25 yards. That bird is not walking away. It's not flying away. It's over for that bird. Even at 50 yards, it's a great pattern. I do want to show you the difference in the same shell at 40 yards or 60 yards. This is a 60-yard pattern. And then give me that 40-yard pattern, same shell.
Is that the federal?
Back it up. Yeah, right in the front, yeah. So you see the difference there? So I think all you guys will agree, what's the minimum or the maximum you believe that people ought to shoot at birds?
40 yards.
40 yards. 40 yards.
I don't like shooting over that. We've been with guys that have killed them at 70, but
yeah, it's a rarity, isn't it?
We've stopped and bought a lot of tickets on the way.
Yeah, that 50-yard shot works. So, it might be that the equipment helps you out a little bit. I will say that, we've been reading it, and you can, you can go on that deal that's going to go away any day now, the internet, and you can see all kinds of videos and stuff like that. But look at the internet, look at those TSS shows that they do that, show what happens to a bird. But the main thing is just don't be shooting at birds 40 yards or further. It's just, you really stand a chance of wounding a bird, and that's not what we're trying to do. And you stand a chance of wounding multiple birds out there too, because they're not always coming in, especially a jake. They're going to be 3, 4, 5 of them sometimes together. Even the gobblers sometimes are going to be teamed up. So, out there your pattern's getting a little bigger, and you may think I'm only aiming at this bird, but you're a little wider than you think, and you might wound a bird. So that's something to keep in mind that you want to do. So yeah.
I think you need to shoot multiple shells with your shotgun too, because not all shotguns will shoot all shells the same. I shoot a Mossberg 835, and it likes those Winchester shells better than anything else.
And every shell up here is the same gun. Same gun, same choke. So you can just, at the end, come up and take a look at it. And, like I said, it's something to go spend money on and have some fun and try out some different shells. If you find a shell that works, you're good. Some of these shells, I think those are 10 in a box there. That should last you, according to Ray, last him 10 years. But,
Depends on how many sticks a hundred.
that's if his Dodge doesn't let him down with his Polaris. Yeah.
And if you have a friend, Scott shoots an 835, I shoot an 835. We both have different choke tubes. Okay, so I shoot the triplex. Is the load that shoots really well out of my gun out to about, 120, I think, Rich? I'm good at. Yeah.
Now the triplex, is that 5, 6, 7 shot?
Yeah.
Is that 3 different sizes?
Yeah,
of shot?
3 different sizes in that. And that one shoots really well, where the Winchester with the Primos jelly head choke that I have doesn't shoot the Winchesters very well, but they shoot great out of Scott's gun. So, that's where it's neat if you got a buddy that has maybe the same gun, or if you have 2 different guns, you can, each buy a box of shells and swap them out. I won't shoot the 3.5, they hurt. I've never had a need for a 3.5-inch shell. I'll shoot a 3-inch shell. And then for my kids, they have those low kick 2 3/4 ones. That's what my kids shot till they were big enough to handle the full. I didn't shoot a 20 gauge or a 410 with them. I just went to the lower recoil 12 gauges. And again, just made sure they were within 30, because that's where that gun was good till.
Yes.
As a shortcut to patterning a lot of guns, if you own a Mossberg, go to Winchester.
Mossberg is a Winchester.
And Benelli's are Federal.
Benelli, Federal. They like that.
Never got anything else to work in either one of those guns.
Okay, that's good to know.
I'll stick with the Winchester with the Mossbergs. Same with me. They work great.
Me, I like a 4 1/4 inch blade. It's just blades. So.
The guillotine one?
No lead poisoning where I'm from. So, all right. So we've called these birds in. We've got them in. I think we ought to do a little more of the calling. Everybody's got a call here. Somebody out there, yell a call that you would like one of our experts to do for you. I'm going to start out with one that's kind of fun for them. Give me a key run.
Yeah, Dave, do that.
Dave ain't afraid. Dave's stepping up. Put your boots on and let's hear a key run.
All right, key run.
Now, Kiki Run, that's kind of like, where are you, right? That's kind of what they're...
That's a poult. There's a young turkey, or Jake will even do that sometimes, but it'd be more coarser for Jake.
It's almost like a whistle, too, isn't it? I know if a guy does it with a diaphragm, it's almost like a whistle.
Well, you can.
Yeah.
I can.
Let's hear your whistle, Kiki Run.
That's a hard one to do on a diaphragm. Well, you're a pro. You're an expert, Dave.
But wait, you have the 6th best caller in the state.
Yeah, Howard's the 6th best caller in the state, so he should be.
The other 5 guys were busy tonight, so.
You joke about that, but yeah, he's the 6th best.
To me, that's a more accurate Kiki Run right there. You'll hear that a lot in the fall, too, especially if you scatter them up. You can call turkeys in the fall, too. I know we're talking about spring hunting, but if you can get turkeys spread out in the fall and you sit down and do that call, you'll get birds back. So it's kind of fun.
Well, and in the spring, that's another point. If you booger the birds up and they run in different directions, they're going to talk to each other to get back together. Because they're a flock, right? They're going to want to get all back together. So that's where like the assembly yelp and those kind of things are going to be useful to know what they sound like. So you can call them so, that dominant hen will try to get all the other hens together and the gobblers together so you can kind of know what that is.
Okay. Give me just a standard call, just an average day. It's not early in the morning. The birds are down. You're out there trying to find a bird. What would your box call sound like? What would you be doing if you're searching for a bird?
But if I'm starting, and we were talking about this earlier, is I always start out soft and work my way up, especially if I'm trying to locate birds. I don't know where any are, because I don't want to blow that bird out that's 150 yards away that I can't see through the trees. So if I get out there and I'm like, that bird's gone, right? But if I get out there and I just go, just real soft, just not over the top. I'm not doing it for 15 minutes straight, those kind of things. Then I might hear this, boo, and then, okay, now they're that way. Now I'll start going that direction.
Let me hear what I know. I like a slate for a couple different reasons, but the main thing I like about a slate is the purr that you can do. And I've had more turkeys they gobble out of their heads when you can master a purr down right, and it's not too hard. That seems to be the thing that just drives them crazy a lot of times. So you can hear a purr here. You see, it's not a real loud call. It's real light.
Well, there's 2 kinds of purrs. You got your contentment purr, and you got your fighting purr or aggressive purr. Aggressive purr is just a lot louder and just that's turkeys fighting or excited about something. So there is a difference. So contented purr is just soft. That's what they do. Fighting purr. You might hear wings flapping. When turkeys fight, it's pretty noisy. There's no mistaking it because you'll hear the wing flap. You hear that purring sound, they really get after it too.
Glenn, don't you remember, a long time ago, you and I went to Kaibab. Every time I see Glenn, I think of a bread wrapper because we had diaphragm calls, but we didn't know how to do them right, so we thought you had to tear that plastic off the front and get that seal off to make the sound real good. So we did that up in Kaibab behind Jacob Lake Lodge, and then we figured out we had done it wrong, and we ended up calling in turkeys holding a bread wrapper and spreading the plastic and blowing on that. That's how we ended, because we didn't have a box call, but everybody, there's so many birds in Kaibab, you didn't need to do it in those days, but I don't think we ever did get anything, did we? No, we got stuck a couple times at the road. It's a little ugly truck years, but anyway, yeah.
How do you keep your box call quiet as you're walking into the one?
I was telling Mike Ranowski that the other day. They got all kinds of stuff. I sound like a flock of turkeys when I run through. Everything's making some kind of a noise, but you shouldn't really do that, I guess.
So I love these little things.
Yeah. It's just a piece of Velcro, right?
A little piece of Velcro. You can buy them all over that crazy interweb thing that Howard's talking about. But
they're actually electrical cord wraps.
Yeah, it's like to keep all the cords behind your computer. I mean, you slip one of those.
Yeah,
on
Home
there.
Depot carries them now, I think, stuff like that, but they just wrap on there. And then some of your box calls will come, or you can buy, like this one came with a leather sheath that has, lamb's wool on the inside of it, and I just slide it in there, and then you can tighten up the cinch around it to keep it quiet. Or you can actually...
I made my own for years with just a piece of elastic and pulled out my wife's sewing machine and just ran up.
You did?
I did.
You sewed?
I did. How about that?
He's secure in his manhood. It's okay.
You buy your call silencers by the 1,000 in a bag, and it's called a rubber band.
Yeah.
Those work pretty good too.
Yeah. Why I use a rubber band, I get them from the produce from the store, and I just keep them. I used to get them at the mailbox, but I don't know what happened.
He doesn't even buy rubber bands. He's taking them off his celery sticks. So that is a guy, that's an economist right there. Yeah. You eat the celery on the way to turkey hunting, save the rubber band. Oh, I love it. I love it.
The other thing real quick on the grocery store stuff is newspaper bags or the lettuce, the bread loaf bags. If you carry one of those, which I do in case it's raining, you can put your wooden box call in it because wood will expand when it gets wet, and you can still call inside that plastic bag and it'll make the same noise. So just to keep your calls from getting ruined, those kind of things.
One more thing about the rubber band. When I take it off my box call, when you put it on the box call, it does the same thing. No noise. I take it off and I put it on my wrist. There it is. It's not going to go nowhere. When I'm done with the box call, I just take it right off my wrist, put it back in the box call.
Otherwise, you're having to run into town and buy more celery.
That's right.
To get that rubber band.
Are you using multiple calls in the morning?
I was just going to point that out. His box up here, I'm looking and I know what a good box call costs, and I'm just looking at some of those. Those are $150, $200 box calls.
Well,
he's probably got about $3,000 worth of calls up here in the back of that little toolbox, that little plastic box.
It helped when you did seminars with Marvin, when Marvin was making and selling calls, and that's how he paid us to help him. So, but yeah, I carry. I don't carry as much as I used to because I've just been mocked incessantly for what I got to carry.
Deep mud puddle, he'd have drowned.
I usually have at least 2 box calls, 2 friction calls, like 2 slates, depending on the weather. So they make these. I have some in glass, aluminum, slate. Some work when they're wet, and then diaphragm calls. I don't know how many are in here. There's probably 6 or 8 or 10 in there. But that's the great thing about these is you can carry a mess of them and they sound different. You can get some that are high pitched. You can get some that are really raspy. So there's a ton of variance in these calls.
Who here has a hard time with a diaphragm call? All right, I had a guy call me today talking about, he said, if you would cover that, The new calls now, they have kind of it's all about the pitch in your mouth and how to get a diaphragm call right. And the new calls today, I know Wayne Carlton's doing that with an elk call. Elk calls work great too. A double reed call gives you a rasp as well. You don't have to cut the diaphragm or tear it off like Ben and I used to do. But if you have, it's got a deal that form fits to the roof of your mouth, so the pitch is set for you. So now you'll see them. They got like a plastic arch to them. If you use those, that gives you the right pitch. So it's kind of a cheating way of going, but it's a really nice way of figuring it out. Yeah.
Primos has one that's called a dome.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's a dome, and it form fits up against your mouth, and everybody's got a different kind of mouth and everything, that the shape of it. And in the old days, they used to take an X-ray of your mouth and show how the pitch looks, and you can't figure that out, how to do that in your mouth until that. But this dome thing really does help out a lot. So.
Yeah, the other thing with the diaphragm calls, this is just a normal diaphragm, triple reed, whatever, with a back cut. I don't know, that all the fancy stuff. It just sounds good. The tape on them, you can cut. Don't be afraid if you've got a smaller, arch, to your mouth. You can trim these down to fit you. Some of them right out of the box, you'll put it in your mouth, you'll gag on it. Some guys put salt on it to kind of help that gag reflex. I think the best thing I've ever found is just use it.
Hot sauce.
Yeah, hot sauce. Okay.
That'll do it.
But I drive around, especially this time of the year, as turkey season's getting ready to fire up. I'll drive around with one in my mouth and just call in my car. It's kind of awkward when you pull up to a light and your window's open and you're sitting there making turkey noises, but
not when you look over at you.
Yeah, it's normal for me. They're like, oh, that's just him.
It's not some of that so much, but when he gets out of the car, he goes into strut.
Yeah.
And walks around. He gets himself excited.
Spitting and drumming.
That's the part that they're getting.
It's really.
But yeah, just keep using them. That's the only real way.
Don't use them too long though. I mean, at a certain point, they just wear out. Just throw it away.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Are you using all three of the calls on the same bird in the morning?
Could. Sure. I usually will use my box call, and I'll usually use a mouth call. Those are my personal two go-to. Scott's much better than I am on a slate, but I'll use a slate. And then, like I was telling Abel earlier, if I'm on a bird in the morning and I've used, my black slate, box or slate call and my, this box call, and I booger that bird, it comes in, but all of a sudden it just takes off. I won't use that on that flock of birds again, because they'll know that sound. They'll recognize that. At least I think they will. So I'll switch up. That's why I usually carry, 2 or 3 box calls. I've got 2 or 3 slates in my vest. I've probably got a dozen different mouth calls. And then with slates, which are the round friction ones, each of the different strikers, if you carry 3 different strikers and 2 of the little pot ones, you've got 6 calls, because each one of those materials that you're striking on it sound a little different. So now I've got, 6 calls instead of 2 if I carry 3 different strikers.
And they sound way different when you do them here than when you get up in
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is start soft and work your way up. Again, hand movement's big, or any movement's big, so that's why I've used a mouth call a lot, because I'll use a box or a slate, to get them in or hear me, and then when I know they're coming, I'll switch to a mouth call, and I'll just put the box and the slate down, so I'm not sitting there doing this. Or if Scott and I are hunting together, I might have him 30 yards behind me, and he'll, lay out.
He always gets to shoot first.
Yeah. It's just a rule we have. I don't know who made the rule, but I follow the rules. So it's just really preference on what you're good with is really what it boils down to.
And that's what I was going to say. Find one that you really like and that you really know how to run really well, and use it. I love a slate call. First thing in the morning, you can get really quiet on it, or if you have to really get aggressive on it, you can get aggressive on it too. I just had a ton of success with that. And I always have a diaphragm in my mouth or tucked in I've got a hat that has a little thing on it, or my vest. I've always got a couple of diaphragms available. Usually, like Corky was saying, I usually carry a single reed, the coyote yelp with. And then these are right there in my pocket on my vest.
buy name brand and stuff that you know from other guys that you've talked to, or if you don't know anybody, buy good quality calls. There's not that much price difference between a really piece of junk call and a really good call, until you start getting into really custom ones where guys are charging thousands of dollars for them. This was the first call I ever bought. It is a piece of junk, okay? It is a Titan 2000 titanium fused crystal. Okay, I think it's one of the first ones Primos ever made. It's probably 20 years old. I can't make this make a good turkey sound. Okay, yeah, you try it. Yeah, you probably can. Yeah, you're gonna need a rock.
And that would get a turkey to gobble.
It would.
You got a Dodge turkey over there.
Yeah. But to me, it doesn't sound as good as some of the other calls. But again, I bought it online. It was like $10 or something, and I ordered it. Okay, but try to buy. You don't have to spend $100,000 on turkey calls. Get a nice slate, get a nice box, get some mouth calls, try them out. Those kind of things. Cabela's, Bass Pro, they all sell them. Sportsman's Warehouse all has good turkey calls.
You'll never know.
Hopefully they'll let you try them. A lot of times they'll have demos out where you can try them. Or are you guys doing another one this weekend?
Mike is, yeah. I'm going to be gone actually doing the real. I've got to go on a field test in Texas to make sure that all the stuff we do works. So, yes, sir.
That's not really true.
But will you have calls out at Cabela's this weekend?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll have calls out there that you can play with and say, oh, I really like the way this one sounds. So, not the promo you might, but
the thing is, out in the woods, when you're sitting there listening, all the turkeys sound a little different.
Oh yeah.
So, in my opinion, there is no bad turkey call.
If you can get it to make a halfway decent sounding turkey noise.
If something answers you, it's the right call.
So
it's about rhythm and cadence more than anything. If you're making the noise in the right, like a turkey does, that's what they're responding to. I think you can take 2 sticks and just clap, 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 and you'll have something answer you. Because that's what they're catching. They're catching that rhythm and that cadence that's going along with that.
I've been out there with my daughter, and she was probably 11, 12 years old. And I was calling for her all morning, and she goes, Dad, can I try? And I was like, yeah, here you go. And she took my slate call, and she made a god-awful whatever it was. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And about 30 seconds later, a turkey come running up over the hill. And we're just standing there talking with each other, so we're busting. But, yeah.
It's like fishing, you gotta use different lures, different calls.
Yeah.
And that brings up a great point. If you're out with your kids, let them call. Don't think that it's got to be this perfect thing. Let them call.
But the thing is be ready.
Yes.
yeah.
Don't just stand in the middle of the road.
That's a great point.
Well,
Don't let your wife call. I'm telling you from experience, you'll never hear the end of it. Remember when I called that bird in for you?
Yeah, before you call, you need to be ready to be hunting.
Yeah.
Don't stand in the middle of the road, find a tree to be by. Even if you're standing up, but be ready.
Stand next
because you don't know, like you said, okay, then you could have shot standing up, but you weren't even ready for that.
The other thing with the strikers, I had 2 kids out and had them both sitting in front of me. I was sitting behind the big dead tree, and I heard a turkey gobble probably, 300-400 yards out. And I started going with my strikers. And I had one that was like some graphite, weird, hollow thing. And it made a super high-pitched, awful noise. And the turkey stopped responding to me, so I was just going through them all, and I got to that thing, and it was my last-ditch effort. And it made a big, loud shriek. And that thing started gobbling, and it ran straight at us, and just kept on coming, would stop every 30 yards, and we saw him about 150 yards out, and he'd stop, and he'd strut, and he'd gobble, and then start running, and he came within 25 yards. But sometimes, if something's not working, you gotta try something different.
So when you're going to go midday, say you don't have a bird that you do anything in the morning, you're going to go, most everybody, I like covering a lot of ground. So I get in my vehicle and or Ranger or quad or whatever, and I'm going to move up and down. It's important that when you stop, just sit there for a couple of minutes. You got to kind of let that settle down. Birds are smart. Sometimes a bird will answer you if you sit there for 2 minutes and ease off in the woods, just get a little bit away from where all that noise was, and then you call, they'll answer. But don't think that you can, sometimes it happens, but most of the time it won't. You can't just run around in your truck and pull over, and just as it gets done rattling and the thing settles and does all the stuff that a truck does, lets the steam out or whatever, and then you call. A lot of times a bird might be right there, but they're not going to respond like they would have if you'd have just waited a couple minutes. So that's something that you got to remember too. It's kind of like elk hunting too. Elk in Arizona have a lot of them have learned that don't answer elk calls that come right at the front of where a vehicle just was 30 seconds ago. It's probably not my friend Bob over there. It's something else. But so that's just something to keep in mind too. Yeah.
I use a mountain bike.
He uses a mountain bike.
Use a mountain bike.
Try that with a bow. That's tough.
No. You just put it on your sling and it blades right across your vest and everything. You take off down the road. I use it for scouting too.
Yeah.
Cover a lot of ground. It's quiet.
They do have those electric bikes now that are pretty quiet. Yeah. Hey, you're going to have to use that pretty soon because we're going green and there'll be no vehicles or nothing. You're going to have to ride around on a bicycle. So, no tires either because that's a petroleum product, so you have to start carving that out of a piece of wood. But we're going to save the tree. No, anyway, there it goes on. Yes, sir. Decoys. We were just talking about decoys. I was talking about back that with Ray. I use decoys a lot on the turkey hunt or on the bow hunting side of it because I want the bird to be focused on. I've got to do a lot of moving and stuff where I'm at. If I'm not in a blind or behind that, we shot a lot of birds behind that big blind. Those. If you can get one of those, it's called a super umbrella. If you can get one of those, go online and just order it. I don't know if Cabela's has any. We did that deal last weekend, and normally after our deal, they're gone. But order one of those. Those are really neat to put kids and or you behind. They're real simple to do. But on a decoy, you want to put it out in front of you. You want the bird to come, and hopefully they'll come around and they'll circle around behind it, and you want to be on the back side of that. So how far out should you have a decoy if you're bow hunting? I like them out about 15 yards and offset, off to my left or off to my right, because I want the bird to come in, be focused on that. And then with a shotgun, 20, 25 yards, something like that.
Yeah, no more. Kind of the same thing though, I would say offset them.
Yeah, offset them. Don't have them right in line with you. If we're going to use Mike as our turkey again, there he is up in a tree. If I want him to come, I'm going to call, but my bird I want to set up over there a little bit. And
decoys, do you have them facing you?
You like them facing you? Okay, yeah, because the bird will come around behind it normally. They'll try and come around on the back side of the bird. But some of the decoys now, you put them on a stick and the wind blows, and you want that. You want that motion and all that kind of stuff. I've done all kinds of stuff. My son's strong. He carries around a flock of birds with us, and sometimes we'll set up 6, 7 of them. And I tell you, on decoys though, I've had mixed reactions with decoys. I've had birds that are coming in, and as soon as they get to where they can see my decoys, they're gone. So I don't know what to tell you. I can tell you, you don't have to have a decoy, but you may want one. So they're fun to play with. It's kind of like calls. There's every kind of a decoy. There's pretty girl, there's strutting boy, there's strutting Jake, there's all of this kind of stuff.
And I carry these. I don't use them a whole lot, but they don't take up any room in my pack because I kind of fold up like a window screen, right? And it's just a little short stick you stick in the ground. And this will actually move in the wind.
Yeah.
And then this one I'll put out very sparingly if I know there's nobody around, because again, it's a gobbler and I don't want some other hunter seeing it, across a meadow or something coming in after me. But they're real lightweight. Again, some guys carry the big flocked ones and you can spend hundreds of dollars on those.
Oh, gosh. Have you seen that latest one they got, the super fan? It's this fan that's about this tall. You can actually almost get behind it and you just kind of take it with your gun and walk right at it.
It's a good way to get killed.
Yeah, it's a good way to get killed.
Yeah. You see all those videos with those guys using the fan like this and walking up behind it, but they're normally on private property, controlled hunt, those kind of things. I don't recommend carrying this thing around. Same thing after you shoot your bird, wrap it up with some kind of orange or something. Don't have it sitting in your bag with the tail fan like this as you're walking out of the woods. That kind of stuff. Kind of not the best thing.
Any other thing that anybody wants to cover on a turkey about what you think you might need to know, or you have no idea and you want to ask these guys?
I got one other one. So you're out and you see another hunter and he's walking past you and you're in camouflage and he doesn't know you're there. You
Take the shot.
If the bird, I'll yell at them, but I'll say like hunter over here. I don't jump up and, make any fast motion because you don't know who that guy is, right? Or lady or kid or whoever. So I'll sit still and I'll your hunt's over. If he's walking in, and even if there's a bird coming, you're done.
I would verbalize.
Turkey's going to see that guy before he sees you.
Verbalize before you move.
Right.
So if he's walking in, I'd say, hello, and then...
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Right.
That's happened to me before. A guy comes walking in. I'm already set up, and the turkey's gobbling just below this little ridge. And I'm like, yeah. And here he comes walking through there with his gun, and I'm like, psst, 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 and that wasn't working. So finally, I did the wrong thing. I stood up. But he was looking away because the turkey was gobbling. So I scooch on over there and say, hey, I got a turkey. I'm set up, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I heard him gobbling. I'm like, yeah, you got to do something, Oh, I'll go back over here. So he goes back over here. I get set up. Yup. Pops up. Bang. That's it. So I go over there, I'm looking at my turkey, here comes this guy, he says, hey, that was really cool. I sat up on the hill, watched the whole thing, that was neat. I'm like, yeah. But, it does happen, but I did the wrong thing. I should have said, hey, instead of psst, psst, because that wouldn't work. Of course, I had a gobbling turkey, so I didn't want to, hey, you know what I'm saying? So that would have been
the biggest thing that we face in Arizona, it's all public land hunting.
Yes, it is.
And everybody else is out there just like you are. Same rules apply. Just be courteous. If somebody's parked on the road, you didn't get up early enough. Go someplace else. I can't tell you how many times I've pulled up, parked, we're getting all our gear on, and some other guy drives right up. They're usually smart enough to stop, because we got guns in our hands. But, just tell them, hey, I've already got a bird roosted up here. We're going to go hunt it. And they're normally like, oh, okay, I'll go over here. That's normally just etiquette. I think if we just keep passing that around, you always hear the horror stories and those kind of things. But I've walked up on guys, that have been sitting there in Unit 1. I walked up on a guy that was in a blind on a water hole, and there was no turkey noises being made, but I was just out scouting around, looking around, and he's sitting in a blind, and I walked up, and I'm like, yeah, he's in there. So we chatted for a little bit, and I left because he was in a blind, and that was his area, so I'm fine with that. I'll find someplace else. So.
And no altercation's ever worth it. I mean, sometimes you think a guy's screwing you up. They may just be absolutely trying to mess you up, not having any respect for you. It's not worth it. Don't ever get involved in the woods. You got to watch it because I know a couple of instances where this happened. If you're in the woods and you threaten somebody, you tell them, hey, you come back over here again, there'll be going to be a problem. And you're holding a weapon in your hand. What did you just do? You assaulted somebody with a deadly weapon. So you don't want to spend in jail. That's not fun. That's not a fun turkey hunt.
In Colorado, we had a couple guys pull up on us that were driving a Prius, and we're all decked out and he pulled up, saw us that we were getting ready to go out hunting, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to go down here and look at this tree, is literally what he said to us. And we're like, you're more than welcome to go down there. We know there's turkeys down there. We're turkey hunting. But we're going to be shooting shotguns at turkeys. So if you're down in there, we can't necessarily know where you are at all times. So it may not be the safest thing for you to go down there. And he was trying to mess with us a little bit to have us not hunt. But again, we were courteous enough to him to get the point across that, you don't necessarily want to be down there where we're, possibly shooting at turkeys. Didn't threaten him or anything, but he
You didn't tell him we're either hunting turkeys or a Prius, either one, you make a choice.
And that was not the year I drove my Prius up there, so, yeah.
Just, if you have plan A, that's great, but you need to have a plan B, maybe a plan C. So if that happens, just go to plan B. But I've never really had a problem with people out there after you talk with them and, you're doing the same thing and whatever, or having a problem, just help them out, or, sometimes I even went with them, we ended up hunting together. Not a big problem. Most people are okay about it. There's going to be some people that say, oh, I did this and I did that, it's my turkey. You can have it.
You know, I'm going to plan B. I don't need this, you know, I'm out here to have a good time, so.
Yeah, a lot of times they don't mean it intentionally, they just don't know. You know, they might be out there hunting too, and they got a tag, and they don't know. So you can't assume that everybody's out there trying to mess you up, you know, they just don't know. So, any other questions?
Come on.
Yeah, one other one. So I was told years ago that turkeys cover about 10 miles a day, and then they stay in this area for a couple of weeks, and then they move over here, and obviously that doesn't sound like that's the case. So what is a turkey's general territory that they're going to
Depending on the time of the year, I think it can vary.
spring?
What are they doing on April 27th?
So if they're, Rich, you know this probably better than I do, they're usually going to walk in concentric ovals. They're going to cross over themselves day after day.
Miriams tend to move in elliptical patterns.
Yeah, elliptical.
And they'll move with the food. Especially if there's green grass, they're going to follow the green grass. They'll follow right up the side of the mountain.
Yeah, and that 10-mile range may be right, but they'll be in this square mile over here this day, and then a little bit further, and a little bit further. So, you know, eventually they'll cover an area.
But not in one day.
Yeah, but they're not going to walk, I mean.
They're going to move 10 miles.
10 miles in one day for a little short, little stubby legs. You know, they're not, that's a lot of walking even for a turkey. They're not an elk.
That's not to say that you won't cover 10 miles.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, but their number one thing to do is run, and then they'll fly. And they don't fly very often. They'll fly, you know, up into the tree or down from the tree. But if they're running away from a predator, they're normally walking or running, and they're moving fast. But they'll also slow down too after they feel like they got away from it.
So I know where we hunt up in 5A and 5B with the kids. They're in pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're basically in those same. I can go up there and I've got at least a dozen spots that I can drive to, and on a consistent basis, I'll hear them there every year.
Yeah.
And the best thing is if you can ever get snow during a turkey hunt, you can drive around and you'll just look for tracks, and those birds are pretty much going to be in that same area every year.
And that's why water holes are really good for looking for tracks, because it's soft around the water holes. You can find turkey tracks, right? The other thing is that dirt roads, when it's dry like it has been, except for this year, probably is going to be a great year, but the side of roads as you're driving, go slow. All that dust that you're kicking up, right? They're leaving footprints in the dirt. So look on the side of the roads. They'll rather walk on the road than they would 5 feet into the forest.
And then once you see them in that dust, do this.
Yeah.
So that nobody else sees.
Yeah, so the next guy. I step on every turkey track I see. Because I know it's there.
You see Birkenstock sandal marks, you know.
Scott's been there. Yeah. If you see dress shoes, I've been there. You know, it's like flat soles. Yeah.
So, one of the best things I ever heard, Rich told me, pick a unit or pick 2 units, get to know your unit.
Like the back of your hand.
Like the back of your hand, how to get in and out, how to get around to this ridge, that ridge. That's another important thing. You know, you're over here, they're over there. How am I going to get over there? You should know that. You know, when you learn your unit, you learn the roads, the ridges, the roost trees, the habits of the turkeys, because turkeys a lot of times, same for me, they're in the same areas year after year after year. I can go to the same place and there's probably going to be turkeys.
And make sure that the best way to kill a turkey is be out where they're at. Be in the woods. Going back to camp, if you're going to take a nap in the woods. Find a little creek or a stream that's got those flowers or something by it, or water and that kind of stuff. It looks pretty, it's nice. If nothing else, you're going to have a nice soothing nap. But if you're by that stuff, birds love to feed up that stuff. I know Mike was telling me that that's how he's killed a couple. There was no calling going on, but he's killed 2 nice toms just sitting on a creek that had grass and flowers, and where birds were just feeding and moving through. Another thing nice about a blind will keep the wind out. We were talking about that wind earlier. You can get, out of the wind in a blind too. So that's another thing to do. And you can set up in a blind, just set it out near where you know turkeys pass back and forth.
Back to the wind, low spots, like a low canyon, low spots. The wind's not as bad. You can hear better. Because if you're on top of the ridge and the wind's blowing like crazy, that's about the only time I might go back to camp and say, no, sir. you know, and have a big breakfast, whatever else. But, I mean, if it's blowing your hat off, everything's moving around, that's not my cup of tea. So I'll find low spots out of the wind, and I'll call down in there, calls carry. That might work for you.
What's the difference between the early hunt and the late hunt, the later hunt? Well, they have the April, into April, and then they have one that goes all the way like May 22nd.
Right.
That's hard to hit. Every year it changes. There's certain times that are better. Sometimes the first hunt's a little better, sometimes the second hunt, and then they mix a couple of weeks there where they both share. It all depends. And if somebody can figure out why a turkey gobbles today, and he won't gobble tomorrow, but he will in 2 days, and he'll do that for 3 days, and then he won't for the next week. Man, you'll be up here next time. Yeah, because I don't know what it is. You can go some places and it's just on fire. Everything's going crazy. There's hens clucking and there's gobblers strutting. You go back there the next day and you'll swear you're in the wrong state. You're like, I know that this is where I was at, but I don't know. It's frustrating.
But that doesn't mean the birds leave.
No.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, they're gone.
You leave.
Yeah.
That's what I tell them.
Well, and if you've got the first hunt or even the second hunt, and you're able to, if my wife will let me, which is usually what it means at my house.
You're already out on your wife. You earlier what you did. Remember, you're at the bar with the big 8 big turkeys or something like that.
But go back towards the end of the year because it's no different than a 2-week elk hunt, right? There's a ton of people there the first weekend and nobody around the second week. Okay, so if you can go back out, if you got the first week hunt, then there's 3 weeks after the second week hunt, right? Go back out. Then there's less guys in the woods to bugger up your hunt. And the patterns could be different. The breeding cycles change every year.
Sometimes if the hens are laying on their eggs, there's a bunch of gobblers out there that are still fired up. I've shot just as many at the end of the season as I have at the beginning of the season.
Right.
Absolutely.
You can do some good scouting midday too. Drive by and look at cienagas, look at big meadows and stuff like that. Birds love strutting in big meadows. They love being right on the edge of that. So where you can drive around and look at the edge of these meadows and stuff, you'll see birds a lot of times strutting. So that gives you a game plan, and they'll do that early in the morning too. So sometimes if you're out cruising around and you see a bird that's strutting 30 minutes after daylight, his roost tree is not too far from there. He got there pretty quick. So I'd think of the evening, I'd want to be in that area. Maybe you don't go over there right then and run him off, because if he's out in the middle of an open area, they're going to see you anyway. So just wait till the evening, ease over there, because like I said, if you see him early in the morning in a field type thing, there's a roost tree near there where they don't go 2 miles and then strut. They strut pretty close to where they're at. So. Anything else you guys would want to add, Howard, that you would want to say?
Just turkey tracks, everybody knows what they look like, right? If you don't look up on that interweb thing, I think it's a fad still, but they can find a lot of stuff. The hens droppings look like popcorn.
Bulbs.
Like little popcorn balls. And then the gobblers and jakes are kind of shaped like a J. That's their droppings, so you can tell the difference between that. They'll scratch looking for nuts and stuff like that, but not too much in the spring. That's more of a fall thing. And they'll scratch in like a V shape, and wherever that V is pointing is kind of the arrow of what direction they're heading. So kind of a fall tip if you're out hunting fall birds this year. Just a couple little quick things that we didn't cover that part of it.
How late into the breeding season will the hens start laying eggs? Or are they laying right at the beginning?
I'll defer to you on that, the biology of laying.
Again, if you can figure that out.
Yeah.
But by the time, the best that I can tell, by the time we start hunting, the adults start hunting, they're starting to lay eggs.
Right.
And then as we get into early May, they're probably, even some of the hens are sitting on nests.
You guys ever seen a turkey on a nest?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's cool. They're like the psychoest thing you've ever seen. Sometimes if they don't blow out, they'll just sit there and you're right there and they're just looking straight ahead. And you're right there and you're moving and they're just looking straight ahead. They'd be great poker players because they got good poker faces. So, yeah. Anyway, it's kind of neat to find. If you find one, they're really secluded about where they go. Because you figure they got to protect those eggs for 28 days, 20?
Yeah, it's 20, I think around 25 days, something.
Yeah, they got to protect them from foxes foxes and coyotes and all that kind of stuff. Hens during the day, they'll go to a creek. Normally there'll be a nest near where a creek or a stream or a pond or something is. They got to cool the eggs down sometimes. It gets too hot in Arizona. So they'll go get their feathers wet and they'll come back and they'll kind of fluff them out and kind of create like a mini cooler over their eggs. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun stuff that goes on with that. So
An interesting point, when they started the juniors hunt, everybody was just sure we were going to kill all the birds because we were hunting the earliest. And it's actually a curse because they're really henned up at that time.
Yeah.
And, you know, hunter after hunter with their kids and dads and moms come in and say, well, yeah, we saw them and everything. And what happened? Well, they were hens and they went the other direction. So I can tell you, you know, the third week in April, they're still with hens.
Yeah.
And the hens are starting to lay, but you still a lot of hen gobbler groups still.
Yeah, the majority of the
We're not slaughtering the turkeys in that season at all.
The best time to get in the woods, I was telling somebody earlier, is around April 1st. That first couple weeks of April is great to be in the woods because the gobblers are so vocal because they're just starting that breeding cycle. And they're just trying to attract all the females to them, kind of like the bull elks are with their bugling, all that kind of stuff. And so when Rich says they're henned up, that means that gobbler has 5 or 6 or 10 hens with him that he's planning on breeding, and he doesn't need another one that's not going to come to him.
So on the state, when does the season open? What day? 27th of April. So if it opens the 27th of April and you got a spot you want to go, do you want to go in there? Because I knew Ray used to like to hunt 4A and I hunted 5A. I'd go into 4A to call birds because I wanted to educate his birds. I didn't want to mess with my birds.
Right.
So is that something that you should or shouldn't do? I mean, if you got a bunch of birds, maybe leave them alone, huh?
Yeah, that's normally the rule of thumb. If you're up there the first part of April and you're just scouting around, you can do some coyote yelping at night to find where they might be roosting and that kind of stuff, and that's not going to bugger them up too much. But you know, if you got one box call and you're out there in the woods doing this all day, and you find them and you're going to go back there and hunt in 2 weeks, guess what? They already know what that sound is, and nothing ever happened from that sound. So they're going to be kind of educated, as we call it. So you don't want to educate them too much with that. Look for sign, look for those kind of things is really what you want to be scouting for. Listen, get up there early in the morning, if you can, to get, when they're the most vocal, typically in the morning.
To what time?
Yeah, daylight. I mean, first crack of dawn. I mean, you want to be in the woods. If you know there's birds in that area, you want to be in the woods at that time. Somebody asked earlier, if you don't have any birds, you don't know where any are, and it's, like Saturday morning for the youth hunt, that's the first time I can get up this year, because I got stuff at work, but Saturday morning, if the guy I'm with or the kids I'm with don't have a bird in a tree, I'm going to try to find a point somewhere where I can listen a long way away and listen for gobbles, and then move that direction to go hunt that bird. Same thing in early April. Get on points early in the morning, listen for birds gobbling. Okay, the birds are over there. Don't necessarily just drive right over there, but get over there, check for sign. You're not hunting, so you can take your time, get over there, look for their sign, look for what direction they're heading. Look around trees, you'll find a bunch of droppings. That's a roost tree. Those kind of things.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to get out and just walk. I mean, if
you work a bird in the morning and you hear him walking off, what do you do, how long you stay?
If he's gobbled in that tree and I'm sitting here and the point goes that way a mile or half a mile, and all of a sudden they gobble and I know they're moving that way, they're just not turning their head, and they're walking that way and gobbling, I'm walking around this way to the other side of the ridge and going that way and try to get in front of them. And then I'll sit out there and try to call them, because they're going to make, like Rich was saying, they're going to make that elliptical or oval and come back to that roost tree. If I don't find them, that night I'm going to know they were in that tree. I'm going to set up over there, because they're probably going to come from that direction to get to that tree.
Or if you've worked him for a while and he just walks off and he's not responding, you may want to go find another spot and come back to that place tomorrow morning or at later in the day.
Yeah, because if he walked that way in the morning and you were here, he's probably going to fly down in that same general area. So be in front of them where their natural tendency is to head that way. They're already going to head towards you. You're not going to pull birds with hens away from their natural tendency of what way they're going to go, if that makes sense. They're not going to go backwards. If they started walking that way, they're not going to turn around and come back to chase one hen down versus the 5 or 6 he may have with him. Do you have a question?
Do they roost during the day?
No.
Maybe if they get scared.
If they get spooked, maybe, but I've never seen one go to roost during the day.
No, they'll feed all day and wander around and scratch and eat bugs and eat grass and just be moving and milling around and stuff like that. That's like Corky said, if you can get on the edge of a meadow, if you got nothing going on, you can get a big meadow or something, sit there and just glass for a while and see what moves. They like to shade just like we do if it's hot and sunny out. If it's cold and if it rains, another quick thing, if it rains real hard, for some reason you got a rainstorm moves through, they're going to hunker down in the trees or bushes to stay out of the rain, but as soon as it breaks, they're going to get out and fluff their feathers and get that all dried out. So you want to definitely be on the meadows after a rain, those kind of things.
We were camping in the meadow and we had like a flock of 18 or 20 flock almost in the camp.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
But it was the same place.
GPS coordinates?
To be scared too out of a tree. This was before we ever thought about turkey hunting. We were just up, we were actually scouting for elk. And I believe it was during the day. Like not yet going to be sundown, but they were up in the tree. We scared them out.
Well, they don't fly up right as it gets dark. They fly up probably half an hour before it's dark-ish. So
they may have gotten spooked. Something, coyote may have chased them, and
Well, that could be true. Because
Yeah.
that area there were coyotes.
Yeah. So they'll fly up in a tree earlier sometimes, but normally, I've always looked at my phone and it says sunset 7 o'clock, right? Well, it doesn't get dark till 7:30, 7:45. So at 7 o'clock, that's probably when they're going to start flying up. They don't want it to be dark when they fly up because they want to be able to still see and that kind of stuff. So they're up in the tree before we think they are sometimes. And they're also down in the tree later than a lot of times you think. Especially if it's cold, they just kind of sit up there sometimes and
let the sun
warm them up before they fly down.
The only day longer on a hunt than turkey hunting is hunting for buffalo. It's a long, long day. Take all the books you ever wanted to read, take your Bible with you. You got time to pray for everybody you ever met in your life when you're out there, and people you don't know, which is cool too. But you do have a lot of time out there, and all the stuff we're telling you to do, you can do it all in one day because you got a long time. It's early season. It's cracking daylight at 4 o'clock or so.
Yeah,
it's breaking light.
At youth camp, we're up at 3:30, and we're usually out of camp by 4:15.
Yeah.
At 4:30, I'm yelling at people.
Yeah.
And then you got to be sitting down by.
It's a long day.
Yeah, it is. And if you sit out and you call birds at night trying to put a bird up, you're not getting back to camp till 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then you come back in and
Jay Scott says when you get up, if there's not a tune before the minutes, you're up too late.
Yeah, and also on turkey hunting too is you've got pretty much, what is it, from 4 to 18, 19 hours that you're out there trying to, it's not very little dark hours on a turkey. And if I picked one mistake I see most veteran or beginner turkey hunters make is you're driving around when you should be sitting. There ought to be a rule like they got in Canada. They got a rule in Canada that half hour after sunrise, you can't drive your truck. How cool is that? And then you can't drive it until noon, or actually 10 o'clock. From 10 to 2 you can drive, and then you can't be driving around after 2, and you can't drive an half hour after sunset. So it allows you to hunt in spots and not be screwed up by vehicles. But you guys all know, we've all hunted the state, and what do you hear? You're set up on a bird, and you got your truck parked and all that kind of stuff, and it's just getting to where it's good. The birds have hit the ground, and then you hear it coming, whang, 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 and they'll park right on you, and you're like, oh, no. But they drive around when they really should be already out there in the woods.
Well, and that's the other thing, too. You can't hunt from a vehicle. You can't hunt from a quad. I've had so many situations to walk into places. Oh, I've been here all week, haven't seen a thing. And the guy takes off on his quad, you hear his quad for the next hour and 45 minutes. It's like, well, there's why you haven't seen it.
All right. Well, did you guys like this format? This is the first time we've done it this way where we got some different guys, and I liked it. I thought it was good.
Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you got some great knowledge on turkeys and turkey hunting from this seminar. Don't forget to subscribe, share the episode, and please take a moment to go smash those 5 stars and leave me a quick review. It'll really help me out. Follow Bowhunting AZ on Instagram at Bowhunting AZ. I'm about to do a huge giveaway, so make sure you're watching my Instagram because you're not going to want to miss this one. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. God bless.